Hey, you awesome folks! Thanks for taking this journey of discovery with your guide, Keith Haney. You're listening to the Becoming Bridge Builders podcast, your favorite podcast for everything from racial reconciliation to education innovation, justice reform, and leading change in the 21st century. This podcast is for people who love to be challenged with difficult topics, but want practical solutions to solve these challenging issues. Becoming Bridge Builders makes change possible. Each week on the podcast, Keith invites innovative thought leaders to share how they are building bridges in their area of expertise. You will hear breakthrough ideas and concepts that are changing the world. He's featuring guests who are best-selling authors, leaders at Microsoft, entrepreneurs, leading educators, professors, lawyers, and so many more. Listen in to learn how you can be the bridge to the change you are seeking.
My guest today is Pastor Ray Lane. He was born during the Great Depression, and in spite of a plan to have him aborted, he grew up on a farm in Idaho, and he served in the Air Force. He attended Boise Junior College, now Boise State University. He was a former breeder of registered Holsteins, graduated from Nazarene Bible College in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and he was a pastor in 5 states and in New Zealand. In retirement, he has served as an assistant funeral director, volunteered as Colorado Springs police chaplain, volunteered with San Diego Sheriff's Department. After Norma passed away in 1986, he married Jean, a bookkeeper from Pasadena, California, a school district. When he was single again, he met Muriel, who was a bell ringer for Salvation Army in Miami, Florida. And finally, he met Joyce, a retired nurse that grew up in Nebraska. Jean and Muriel are also deceased. Now he and Norma have 2 children, Leah and Jeff, who passed away at age 59. He and Joyce now live in a retirement community in Colorado. Welcome, Pastor Ray, to the podcast. Well, Pastor Ray, how are you doing at this fine day, my friend?
Oh, it's a beautiful day in Colorado.
Oh, I bet. My son just left Colorado. He's moving back to Texas. He was at Fort Collins for a while.
Oh, Fort Collins. I have a grandson, or my wife has a grandson in Fort Collins.
Yeah, my son's in the Army, so you know the routine.
Oh yeah, I do that. I lived in Colorado Springs where Fort Carson is, and there's 50,000 Army people coming and going there all the time.
Yeah, that's where he was at, Fort Carson. Well, it's good to have you on, my friend.
Well, it's good to be here. I've been waiting and looking forward to this for ages, and fearfully waiting.
Well, we're fearfully and wonderfully made, so it works out just perfectly, right?
There we go.
So I'd love to ask my guest this question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I want to limit it to just one piece of advice. The superintendent of the high school where I attended in a little town in Idaho told me that there's a fact of life that is very important. He said, do not make excuses, make good. And I've lived by that from the time I heard it. Early in life, especially, and it became a habit, I think, of trying to finish up whatever I was supposed to do. If I didn't, I had a nickname, Halfway Lane. And that was disappointing whenever I sounded like that. Anyway, that is the one thing I really like to key in on.
I love that.
Don't make excuses, make good. And in our world today, there's so much excuse making.
You're right, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm curious, in your journey, are there some people who have come alongside you in your walk that have been an inspiration for you, or even a mentor along your way?
Well, I'm going to start with my first wife. We were married for 57 years, and when we got married, neither one of us knew anything about God. And there came a time when we had 2 children. I don't know, they were about 4 and 6 years old. A neighbor invited us to send them to Vacation Bible School. So I knew the lady and trusted her, so they took her to a church. Neither one of us went to church. I knew more about God than she did because I'd gone to Easter and Christmas services once in a while. She never even done that or did that. And our kids went to vacation Bible school. Now, this is all about my wife, remember. She said, let's let them go. So they went. They came home happy about this. And then the lady that took them wanted to take them to Sunday school. And I said, oh, I don't know, maybe that's too much religion. But we finally decided to let her take the kids to Sunday school, and they went for several months, and they came home from church every Sunday, and they were happy and singing songs, and it was a good time. And I told my wife, I said, you better go find out what they're teaching our kids at this place. I've heard they're kind of radical. They get a little noisy on Sunday, and this is a small town, and we kind of had a little idea what went on everywhere. But I said, you better go see what they're teaching our kids. So she was really hungry spiritually. I never was, but she was. And so she went, and she came home a few weeks after she started going to church, Sunday school and church. And she came home one day, and she was all happy, and she says, I got saved today. And I said, saved? Saved from what? She said, well, and she tried to explain it to me. And she wasn't very well able to explain it because she was brand new baby Christian. Well, it turns out that she was a redhead, a beautiful redhead, and she figured that being a redhead, you had to have a temper to go with it. And so she did. When we left that farm home years later, there was still a door that was cracked down the middle from her slamming it so hard. And all of a sudden, she didn't seem to have that terrible temper that she'd had. And everything about her was nicer. Her activities, the way she acted was just good. So I recognized that something had happened, even though I didn't know and she didn't know what it was exactly. But she went to church for 2.5 years, and before I got interested at all. But I watched her life, and she introduced me to some of these church people. I never went to church during that time, but she introduced me to them, and them to me, and they were really nice people. I thought the church was only about getting your money, but through her changed life, I came to the point one day that she asked me during what she called a devotional time that she had every morning. When we finally left that farm home, there were 2 spots where the carpet beside the bed were worn thin. She had been praying for me. And there came a day when Scripture told her that she was to ask me if I believed in Jesus as Lord. She asked me that one morning, and I said, well, yeah, I believe that. Didn't think anything about it. But then later in the day, she said, the Bible tells me from Isaiah that by saying that Jesus is Lord, you become a Christian. I said, okay. She says, can I tell the church about it? They've been praying for you, you know. Well, I kind of figured that, but I didn't know I was so bad. And I said, yeah, you can beat the drum or blow the trumpet, whatever it is you want to do, go ahead. So I went to bed that night, not thinking about spiritual things. That was on a Friday, and Saturday morning I got up and I threw my cigarettes away. And I had a new language unexpectedly. It was clean, pure clean from that day to this, I haven't sworn but one terrible time. I was just cleaned up. And even the dog, we were on a farm at the time, I had a terrific herd of cattle. Even the dog and the cows got along with me better, and I'd never abused them. But there was a difference in the spiritual atmosphere around the place. Come Sunday morning, my wife was getting ready to go to Sunday school and church, and I had rushed around and finished the chores up and came in the house, and I said, if you wait a few minutes till I get showered, I'll go with you. So I went to Sunday school, or I went to church, didn't go to Sunday school. And when the church service came along, there was a deal where they passed a plate around collecting money. And I'd always been opposed to giving money to the church. But for some reason that day, I got my checkbook out, and I was sitting in the back row, of course. And when the offering plate came by, I dropped a check in the basket, in the plate. And when I did that, I knew that something had changed. And from that day forward, we went to church, and people hadn't had a new Christian for years in the church. It was a fine church, good people, as best you can get. And I learned and soon joined a church, and it was through my wife and seeing what God can do in a life. And she became quite a famous artist, painted 1,700 paintings and sold them, and you can't see it, but on the wall behind me is a picture of Madonna and child. It looks like a mother holding a baby up, and we call it the baby Jesus. I've been offered 5-figure price for that painting, and I wouldn't take it. Anyway, Joyce was now my mentor, my fourth wife. I don't know if people got the information earlier about my early life of having been aborted. I wasn't hearing, but maybe that was done. Everybody else may hear it. But I'm now married to my fourth wife, and she is a jewel of helping me as a mentor as well, because she came up out of a Catholic background, and she's challenged me about all the stuff that I thought I knew as a Nazarene pastor, and I've had to learn to explain stuff better than ever, even after 50 years of pastoral ministry. She's been an incentive for me as well. There's some others that have contributed to my life experiences and direction. One is Dr. Oswald Hoffman. I think you may know about him.
Yes, I do.
The Lutheran Hour. While I was milking cows at the point in time, I listened to him as much as I could, hours a week, listening to Oswald Hoffman. I really cut my theological knowledge of the Bible on Oswald Hoffman. He was a great incentive to me. And there's several others, but one more I want to mention. There's a pastor in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that was pastoring a church, and when we were also in New Mexico, one Sunday we went to visit his church, and he had a situation in his church where one of his young Hispanic ladies had had a baby, and the pastor was having a dedication service for this baby. There was no father there. There was none mentioned. But the man brought that congregation together to love and support that young mother and child. I was so impressed by that. Love in spite of unfortunate situations. Anyway, those are some of my mentors.
Well, that's very inspiring. I want to dig a little deeper. I did kind of read your bio at the beginning of a podcast that's going to be on that people can hear. But I'm curious, part of your life started out in a very unusual way. Tell us about your birth, your miracle birth, and kind of what shaped your journey to become a pastor.
Well, the start began because I was born. It's a crazy idea, but I have a position and something to offer everybody just because I was born. My mother had gone to the doctor, the family doctor, and had already had 2 abortions and went in to have a 3rd one during the Great Depression. And the doctor says, "Why do you need another one? You're on a farm, you got plenty of food and everything. Why do you want another abortion?" She said, "Well, Dad wants it. Where is your husband?" "He's out in the old Model A waiting for me to come out." He says, "Can you go out and bring him in?" So Mom went out and got Dad and brought him in. And Dad and the doctor went in the office and had a conversation. And whatever was said, I wish I had asked Dad. I think he would have told me. But I never knew what happened, but here I am. 93 years ago last week, that's when I was conceived. And it's been a wonderful life. My parents did not treat me as unwanted. They gave me as good a life as they were capable of giving. They lived by the golden rule. They were not churchgoers, but they lived by the golden rule, and they were well respected by friends and everyone. And so I grew up with the golden rule. And that was a starting place for what could happen in my life. I was pretty much a straight arrow all of my life. I didn't get into all sorts of bad stuff. Didn't do any bad stuff. I think I got one spanking in my life, and I never needed another one, I guess, because I just stayed on the straight and level. Though my parents had an older brother. He was 7 years older than me, or I had an older brother. He was 7 years older than me, and they did not treat him very well, I didn't think. But they treated me very well.
You wrote a book called Unlimited Potential of the Unborn. What led you to write that book?
The title, the full title is Conceivable, the Unlimited Potential of the Unborn. The reason I wrote that book was because of all of my experiences through life. I contributed a lot to wherever I was. I was president of 4 different organizations. I led all sorts of things on the farm. I had awards and achievement records and stuff that made the whole community respected me, and I was a leader. And the reason that I actually ended up writing the book after the good years of farming and breeding cattle, and then as a pastor for many years. A year ago, the senior retirement facility where I live, just in the edge of Denver, Colorado, had the state attorney general come to speak to our facility, and a couple of hundred people can be seated in the theater. And someone asked him a question, what he thought about Roe versus Wade being changed the way it was. he said, "Oh, I hope people come to their senses and change that back." And I just felt like a bomb went off in my brain. He just essentially said, "I wish you had never been born." That's what it's meant to me. And people have told me, because of all of my experiences and things in life, that, hey, you ought to write a book. Well, after that explosion in my mind, it seemed like God said to me, now is the time. So that was around the 1st of August a year ago, and a few months later the book was published last day of January this year. And it's been a labor of love, but wow, is it tough. But it's telling about what a life is that could have been taken away.
So, Pastor Ray, give us the overview of the book. What are the main themes, and what are the messages you want people to find in reading this book?
It's simply what I've just been saying. I want people to know that when a baby is aborted, a life is lost. And there are so many, thousands of similar stories that can be told. Tim Tebow, most people who have anything in knowledge of sports know about Tim Tebow having his mother was advised to have an abortion. I heard her speak one time in California, and there are just multitudes of stories of individuals. One of the singers for Billy Graham, that I actually worked with Billy Graham on for a week one time. One of the singers had been the result of a rape and was such a star in people's lives, since it's such a part of Christian reality of what a person can be. God said in the beginning he's going to create man in his own image, man and woman he created us. And we are special, every single one of us. I look at you and I think, wow, this guy really has it. And I've heard you talk a little bit, and if there's envy, I can't be envious, but if I could, you're doing something that I think is awesome. And there's not a person alive that could not have been aborted. They could look in the mirror when they get up in the morning and say, ooh, could it be that I might not have even been here? Think of all the things that have happened in my life, what I have done, where I've been. It's just incredible. I had breakfast with Bill and Gloria Gaither one morning. How can you imagine that? Awesome experience to be with them. Jim Dobson, I went to church with him. Everybody knows, I think, that he began Focus on the Family. Jim was a genius of a man. Went to church with him. I prayed with him numerous times. God has blessed him, blessed the world through him. And I met him. I knew him. I knew he and his wife, Shirley. Shirley came to our home before my wife died and visited her about a week before my first wife passed away. The experiences that you and I have, and every person has experiences. Think about the fact that when I was looking to get married at the age 21, I thought 21 was the age she had to get married. So I I was busy chasing ladies. You know, everybody knows, well, hopefully, everybody has the experience of the search for a mate, men and women. Everybody's got that search. I could have missed it. I had at least 2 siblings that were aborted. I have thought so many times, it's so sad that they missed this wonderful thing, the mate making business. I dated 7, for some reason, I don't know why I did this, but I counted the number of ladies, young ladies that I dated during that year before I met Norma. There were 17 of them that I met. And I can tell you, not one of those got married. If they were not a virgin when they got married, it was not my fault. My mother had taught me to respect women and have some self-discipline in my own life. Life is such an amazing thing. If we look at back where we've been, I see the 3 crosses on the shelf behind you. I think there's a lot of meaning there. It looks like there's a sword up there. I'd like to hear about that someday. I think that
Sure.
probably has a sword of the spirit, the power of...
Yeah, that's kind of how I liked the idea of the sword of the spirit and having those crosses there too. Yeah, it's a very powerful picture when those people, when I'm doing a podcast, they see those things behind me and they're drawn to the sword and the crosses.
Well, it's the fact of life. We are human beings created to live in a life that it's a spiritual situation because God created it. And I am just overwhelmed frequently.
Yeah, it's powerful. You have had a remarkable 93 years. As you think about your life, what are some key milestones in your life that stand out for you?
I'm thinking about times when I came close to dying or being killed. It's amazing that in this period of time in the history of America, we know about a candidate for president who was shot at and a bullet took part of his ear. One time when I was hunting, I did a lot of hunting when I was young. I was just out there in the mountains. One time when I was hunting, I heard a bang, fish. I heard a bullet go by my ear. I don't know how far it was out, because I don't know how far you can get away from the speed of a bullet that's traveling about 3,000 feet per second. But it leaves a little sound, and it sounds like a bumblebee. And it just happened so quick. But I was in this brush, and somebody across the way, across the gully from me, took a shot at someone in the brush. They saw movement and took a shot. Well, I had a .270 rifle with a scope on it, and I'd been awarded ribbon in medal in the service for marksmanship. And I took a look at the guy, and I actually, this was memory from back, I don't know, 50 years ago now. I took a look at him, and the words or the thought that came to my mind, being an expert with the rifle, I thought, I'm going to notch that man's ear. And I actually considered it. But I realized it's sometimes when I was shooting, I'd miss the small bullseye by a half inch, and I didn't want to kill the guy. But all that was one of the near experiences of death. I've been in 3 car accidents when the car was totaled, and the picture of one of those cars is in my book. Why didn't I die? There weren't any seat belts, and that car that's pictured in the book rolled at least 7 times. We were traveling at 80 miles an hour, and a construction site showed up. This was dark in the early morning before light, traveling at 80 miles an hour, and we see this little light off the sides of the road, and my friend who was driving always drove with these lights on dim. Anyway, there wasn't time to make anything else. He just turned his wheel, and the road around the construction was just gravel and flat, and we hit that, and for many years I could feel the glass on the other side of the glass, my head against the passenger side window. I walked away from that accident unhurt. I found out later that I'd actually hurt my back, but I think that may have happened because the car ended up laying on its top, and we crawled out where the back window had been. There were no seat belts in those days, in 1954. And why didn't I die? And there was a time on the farm when I was leading one of my prize bulls around, showing him off. I was leading him by the nose ring, and he decided he didn't like that, so he took me down, and I was eyeball to eyeball like this with the bull. He could have killed me, but there was a friend there that yelled at him and got him to back up, and I got over the fence and got out. Why didn't I drown the time that at 7 or 8 years old went swimming in a canal with my aunt and my brother, and I stepped into a deep hole, had no idea about how to swim, and I stepped into a deep hole, and my brother and my aunt pulled me out. How come? When I was in the service, one of the station places was Victorville, California, and 3 of us had to go to the beach. We went to Santa Monica Beach, got out in the ocean, and I could dog paddle at that time, just a little bit. And I was playing around in the water, and they fell into a hole or stepped into a low place in the beach area, and I couldn't get out. Every time I'd get close to the beach, a wave coming back out would put me back in the hole. There were 2 brothers that saved my life. One of them helped me till he couldn't move, and he crawled out. His other brother helped me, and we finally got me out of the beach. And I had a lot of water to get rid of. Why didn't I die when that happened? There was numerous times when I had tractors turn over on the farm. I never was hurt. I could have died. I know others that died that way. All of this life of places and times when I could have died, they just didn't happen. I think God was watching over me. I think He does today as well. That's part of the story.
That's beautiful. You know, part of the discourse we're having in our society today about the unborn is a lot of controversy. And the argument I always hear one side make is the rights of the mother, and the child is left out of the discussion. As a pastor and someone who values life as much as you do, how do you argue for people about the life of the unborn?
I'm not sure argue is quite the right word.
Yeah, I try to think of a better word. How do you? Because when I talk about it, to me, I try to get back to the issue of rights is the wrong place for us to start the conversation. Because rights, I always say rights are, if you go by the Constitution, rights were given to us by the Creator. I view all life as a gift of God, like you've been talking about. How do we discuss this in a way that we lift up the fact that this is a precious gift of God, that we all have this life? And you just described beautifully how God intervened so many times in your life, because what he gave you is this very special, precious gift of life. And how do we convince people who don't see the birth of a baby as a gift of God?
As I think about this, one of the things that I think of is asking a person, what do you think the baby would say if you asked the baby, do you want to live or do you want to not live? It's a simple question in a sense, but it has a profound meaning. I think about, I've seen pictures of babies that were a foot long. They have one way or another gotten outside the mother's body. As a funeral director, as I worked in that in 6 years in retirement, I was involved with an awful lot of funeral services that involved small, 2 years and younger babies. And I saw the pain that it caused. It caused me pain. It does today. To think about all the babies that I helped in the memorial service. Quite a number of them, I was the pastor for it. And the idea of this young couple that comes in, would come so often, it seemed like. A young unmarried couple came in and their little baby had died. Well, we always wondered why and how. But the suffering that went on for grandparents especially, it's just overwhelming. I had a thing happen just recently, several months ago, watching the news, and there was a couple of women walking along they had white boxes in their hand, and they were in dark clothing, and I thought, wow, well, how come they're showing this bit of a funeral procession, kind of, with these two ladies? The white boxes that they were carrying were filled with petitions to put on the Colorado ballot that's now out in the hands of the Colorado voters, to make it legal, to make it to change the Constitution of the state of Colorado to make abortion legal at any time. And my first thought was pain with the people, and then I thought, they are advocating murdering babies by the thousands every day, every year. It goes on all over the world, of course. One of the things that I write in the book, I give you the scriptures and things about that God knew us before we were born, from Isaiah and Jeremiah and those scriptures. But the idea that there's no value in that tiny thing. My grandson, who wouldn't exist if I had been aborted, he wouldn't have existed. He is the top graduate in 2015 with a computer engineering degree from the Colorado School of Mines, which is the premier engineering school west of the Mississippi. And he is involved right now in research with artificial intelligence to find a cure for cancer. His father, my son, died at the age of 59 of pancreatic cancer. My son was such an important mentor to me, really, because I never felt like I was any hot shot of a father. But he wrote me a letter that I include in the book, that's several pages long in the book, telling me one Father's Day, about 30 years ago, telling me how terrific I was as a father. I kept it in a safe because it was so valuable to me. And I was with him at MD Anderson the day that the doctor said to them, there's nothing more we can do. And I was with him. And I had a conversation with him about life. Having a conversation with your son, who might not have happened, is, well, I can only say it's traumatic.
Right.
But thankfully, we were able to get a conversation in, and then I wrote a letter to him that he got a day or two before he actually passed away, 2 weeks after my last conversation with him in person. Life is so precious. From day one of the conception, DNA, the millions of things that every one of these cells that you can see and the cells you can't see, every one of them is programmed so that as this baby is being put together in the womb, each cell knows where to go. It's supposed to be on this side here by the ear, or in the ear, inside. It's part of the brain. Every brain, from its time of being put together, has within it a situation where the brain knows right from wrong. From during the time of gestation, it's happening. We learn right from wrong. It's a God thing. It's something that, let's see, I'm trying to remember the name of Pascal. Pascal is the name I'm trying to get. 17th century. Pascal said there's a place in the heart, in the central being of man, that is not satisfied until it knows its creator. And it's a live individual from beginning.
That's beautiful. So, Pastor, I'd love to ask my guest this question. At 93, what do you want your legacy to be?
Two things. My book. It's been described as an inspirational book. It has some very deep theological stuff in it. It's mostly about my life, but it's my life as connected and surrounding what what life can be. That book is likely to be a resource book for seminary and Bible students all over the world for eternity, however long we last. And the other is my legacy is the grandson that I told you about just a little bit ago. Two things.
I love that. So where can people find your book, Conceivable, Unlimited Potential of the Unborn?
It is available everywhere that sells books practically. I know that Amazon has it on sale, and even Walmart. You can order it at Walmart. You'll have to go pick it up. They don't carry it in the store. But you can order it any place. Barnes & Noble, you can order it there. They don't carry it, but you can get it from them. Self-published books are, well, there's a lot of them. Lots and lots of books. But it's hard for people to know where to find the really good stuff. And I had a story published in Epic Times about my book and my life story, and quite a lot of books were sold because of that. And when people find out about it, people that read it or find it to be inspiring, and inspiration is an important word. It kind of has to do with the sword of the Spirit that's up behind you.
Right.
Inspire has to do with air, but pneuma has to do with God, the Spirit of the living God. Oh.
That's amazing. So I encourage my audience to pick up the book. Also leave a review on Amazon, because as we leave reviews on Amazon, the book is easier to find. And we just want to thank you, Pastor Ray, for your inspirational story, your journey, for taking the time to share with us what the heart behind the book was, because it gives us so much more depth to understand this is really your journey of how God intervened early on before you were born to say, this life is precious, this life means something, and to use you as a blessing now to bless others who are on this journey too. And may they pick this up and be inspired, share it with their family and friends as we who are believers lift up life as valuable, precious, and a gift from God. So thank you, Pastor Ray, for what you do.
Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share these thoughts with you. It's been my privilege.
Do you know that most entrepreneurs hit a revenue ceiling and have no idea why? They're working harder, spending more money, running more ads, but revenue stays flat. My friend Dr. Noah St. John calls this the invisible break. He's giving our listeners a free revenue ceiling audit to help you see what's really holding you back. You'll get a free 30-day membership to NoahBot, giving you access to Dr. Noah's 30 years of experience to help you reach your next level. But hurry, because there's only 50 available this month. So if you're tired of being stuck at the same revenue level and want to finally break through, get your free revenue ceiling audit at drnoahvault.com in the affiliate link that'll be listed in the show notes.